O'clock. We'll call the Sawyer County Administration Committee meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Reed Schmidt,
Here.
Ron Buckles.
Present.
Tom Duffy.
Here.
Tom Kinsley. Dale Schleter.
Yep.
Four.
The record indicate we have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, certification of compliance with open meetings law, Madam Clerk.
This meeting has been noticed in public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Mike, do we have anybody online?
No.
You. Meeting agenda has been presented. Number 6, public comment. I have one signed up. Ms. Zelmer, please step to the microphone, state your name, address, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Linda Zolmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater property owner. First of all, I'd like to invite anyone who's interested to attend tonight's meeting of the Birchwood Four Corners Emergency Services District. They meet on the second Thursday of the month. It's at 101 West Loomis in the village of Birchwood, which is the side street right between Dairy State Bank and the big green store on the corner, and across from the newly being constructed fire and ambulance hall. And one of their topics of discussion tonight on their agenda is the situation with member towns that are paying for 2 services. And then my public comment that I wrote in was about public comment and public participation. The way I understand the board rules may suggest things work or similar to what happens at Public Works, that the people that sit around these tables are the committee members and department heads, and the public sits off to the side. And we get recognized sometimes just during public comment, but if there's a need to supplement information, then the chair's discretion to recognize somebody. Other committees, such as economic and development and extension, maybe land, water, forestry, there are members of the public that sit around the table. And I'll just, not to pick one, but this is a good comparison. When Mr. Morotek used to be the motorized sports representative, he would sit back here and he would be recognized. Well, now that representative sits at the table and sometimes participates like a committee member. So maybe a future discussion item is who is going to get recognized at public comment, who gets to participate by sitting at the table. Just because it is a perception thing, and I would appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mike, anybody online now?
Nope.
All right, number 7 then. Consider approval of our meeting minutes, March 9th, 2023. And we had Mr. Duffy.
Approve them as presented.
Okay. Second by Mr. Kinsley. The meeting minutes of March 9th, 2023 as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, number 8. Gary Veteran Service Department report.
Well, for March, the office had 560 phone calls, 355 letters, emails, and faxes, and 154 office visits. For the Veteran Service Office, we submitted 47 disability pension claims to date and received retroactive payment of a little over $78,000 for claims decided in the veterans' favor. Our training is ongoing for our administrative assistant. She continues to get through. She's went through one set of training, which was fairly simple, computer-based training. Now she's doing another type of training. It's called trip training, and there's like 18 chapters in it with like 26 subsets. So she's on 12 right now. It's not easy training, but she's going through it fairly well. I think her lowest score has been a 95, so I'm pretty happy with that. Once that training's done, then I'm probably gonna end up sending her down to Milwaukee to get accredited with the state of Wisconsin, so she can start actually doing some work online. with the veterans, but right now she's got a steep learning curve because she wasn't a veteran, so she basically started off, from ground zero. I'm doing pretty good with that. For my training, it's ongoing. I've got, I booked myself reservations for the 4th through the 10th down in Madison. We have a national accreditation, national CDSO accreditation that I'm accredited with. And this year they're coming to Wisconsin, so I'm gonna go down and get my training through them. It's a little different flavor because it's based off national benefits more so than the state of Wisconsin. We usually have training twice a year normally through the state to keep our accreditation up, and it's more localized benefits that gets hit on. So anyway, it's good training, and I'll be gone, like I said, from the 4th through the 10th on that. And then later on, probably in August or September, depending on when the state has training, I'm gonna send Nicole down for that. Provided she gets through the training, I have no reason to doubt she won't at this point. So. Any questions?
Gary, the tribe is without a veteran service officer right now, but we started interviews and we have several candidates. How are you handling that workload? Because I know you're seeing tribal people along with everyone.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, I've been serving the tribe for ever since I started here. And that's the God honest truth. That hasn't stopped. Where my workload has come in is the recent changes in the law, the PACT Act. It has been a significant increase in work. Significant. I rarely do I get through a lunch without having to stop having lunch and help somebody that walks in. I've been asking people to make appointments because it's less destructive as far as I can concentrate on one person, get them done through. But that doesn't, public service, people walk in, they expect service. I've got veterans that are driving from other counties to come to our office, hoping that they get some help. It's been an onslaught. And most counties in the state, I think, have went and hired another person over this PACT Act. So that's how busy it is nationally, not just the state of Wisconsin, not just our county, but nationally. But anyway, it's just been a slug. So keep pedaling.
Any other questions for Gary?
No.
Guys?
So at the present time, the tribal members are going to see you, Gary.
Yes.
Always have been, which I agree.
They
That's right.
always have been.
Yeah.
So, but if you want some advice for that, you need somebody that's gonna go through the training. It's not easy. And because the whole purpose for, especially getting through nationally, or well, not even that. Nationally, it's important because you can call up, they're gonna look you up and what's up, a record with the VA. They've got the VA has a record of every service officer that is currently qualified, properly trained to serve veterans. And so you can Google it yourself and see, who's on what base. But the importance of this training and accreditation is a CAT card, or what the VA calls a PIV card. That card, if you get accredited and signed up, you can get into the VA database and you can actually see what's going on with these veterans. Without that anymore, you really don't. You're running on one leg. You don't have the access. You don't have the capability to do your job the way I think everybody expects you to do your job. So the and then on top of just getting through the training and getting the card is a willingness to knuckle down and that, get into the grub work and muscle through it. So there's a bit of an attitude that comes along with it that you're gonna get the job done. So
Okay. Thank you. Question, yes.
Also, Mr. Chairman, if the tribal gets their veteran service officer. Will they still have the choice to either go to Gary or will they have to go to the tribe?
No, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Gary and the TBSO work very close
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah.
Always has.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why even veterans from other counties, have come into our office, and sometimes it's personality issues where, it just rub, the veteran service officer and that veteran, they don't mesh.
They don't.
And I can, I can understand that. I don't have everybody doesn't like me, you know what I mean? I got people that I got the wrong hair color, but there's other issues where something just isn't working out too good as far as maybe performance or quality, so they come. And I've had other people too. I've had people walk in that wanted to do fraudulent claims and I sent them packing.
Wow.
And they went shopping for a CVSO to find somebody that's gonna do their bidding for them, and I will not do that. So I will not do that.
Hey,
No,
thank you, Gary.
you're welcome.
Good, yeah, appreciate it. All right, number 9, information technology report, Mike.
Hi, good morning. So I don't have a written report, but we've just been working mostly behind the scenes, getting the new building hooked up, and some of the sheriff's staff moved into their new offices. The court staff, judge moved into their offices. So been busy with that and take any questions. Anybody has any?
Anything for IT?
Yes, I mentioned to Mike, I mentioned to Andy. Maybe this fall, we put the budget together, we can get something newer, maybe something we can do a virtual meeting on. Something to think about.
Replacing your iPads, you mean? Sure, yeah, we'd be glad to help with that. I think, yeah, we've noticed some issues with your icons not working. Yeah, we'll be glad to help with that.
Just keep that in mind, so.
Okay,
And they're really struggling to be able to get emails open. Everybody is.
yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, we'll take a look at whether either. Yeah, I won't go into detail now. We'll work with you.
Okay. And I know, Mike, that Andy and all of us are concerned about any change orders with the renovating of the old courtroom. Do you foresee anything from your department,
With the old
other than
courtroom,
what you budgeted to renovate that old courtroom?
not specifically the old courtroom. We did ask for, we're looking at the audio video budget, and we asked the vendor for their estimated remaining billing, and it looks like it's going to go above what we budgeted, but we haven't gotten that itemized yet. So it could be above budget.
He said that for the boardroom notice, he's born, so.
Yeah. So they're all covered, right?
There,
We gotta keep in mind that we hired these people at risk. That they were gonna guarantee on time and on budget, remember?
You did, the AV, some of these things though were not part of the Myron contract. The fixtures, the AV, utility locates, some of those things were county responsibility, so AVs. One of the areas that you want to call it the supply chain issues or whatnot, but we've had some issues. Been difficult to get some of the equipment, and when we've been able to procure it through our vendor, it's coming in at a higher cost. That wasn't, it's a quote for those materials. So when we get into the second courtroom, some of the things that are difficult for the timing and the acquisition standpoint for the new courtroom could continue to be an issue.
All right, anything else for Mike?
Thank you, bro. You do.
Thanks, Mike. We agree. Mike, thank you. All right, number 10. Human Resources Report, Rose?
Good morning. You guys have my report. The only thing I have to add is, we did make an offer to the Health and Human Services position, the director position. And yesterday we received another resignation from a driver operator. It was expected. It's a retirement resignation. And that's it, unless you guys have questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Buckles,
Uh,
yes.
Rose, so how many are you short at the highway department now? Two.
We do have some maps coming in for the Hayward shop. So I've been sending those out for Mr. Pennell and Mr. Bizey to review.
Is the two including the one that came in yesterday?
Yes,
Yeah. that would be
Yes.
effective at retirement.
May 1st is his retirement.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for HR, guys?
Maybe I'll just drop in, what Rose just
Yeah, I got
said, so the committee knows. We announced this at the Human Services meeting. For the Human Services Director position, the offer pending board appointment is Julia Lyons, to become the Human Services Director. So that'll be on the agenda too tonight.
Rose, it also came up at Health and Human Services. I know Mr. Schleter was there, but we have CCS people that are being referred to us and we can't take them because we don't have staff.
Are you
Would
talking
work.
about the mental health
Yeah,
therapist?
I guess is that what it is?
Yeah, that's well, that position's been open for a couple of years. So we have had applicants, my choice to slow anything down until we have a new director in place, so that that person can be part of the
Sure.
hiring process.
What has the current director done? Health and Services.
When is he done?
What has he done?
Yeah.
So what has he done?
April 20th.
Yeah, I just.
I thought that was what he said too. What has he done?
I'll try to respond, April 20th.
I know what he has.
Yeah, and the other, I think. Yeah, the new commissioners on, with Paul's retirement or resignation, and then we also have a retirement from Dan Plover. Land information, he's done April 28th as well. So we're looking at options for that right now.
You know, he
Yeah.
took on two positions, you know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Schleter, no, you're good.
How
Mr.
many
Schleter?
years has Dan been a county
So
employee?
once, yeah, he told us that.
He's been
One,
around
yeah.
a long time. Doing a good job too.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to, we talked to Dan, Rose and I are, looking at our options because I think that's what we're referring to. He's our land information officer and he's also our county surveyor. And those are, can be or two distinct functions. So we're just looking at what our options are to move ahead.
Because who did we lose? He was a surveyor prior.
Robin.
Yeah, when Robin left, he took over.
Well, Andy and Rose, I'm just concerned about the mental health crisis and everybody's talking that that's gonna only increase.
Mhm.
And I know that our out of county placements are linked to that they get good care here before it reaches that point where we have to place them somewhere. And you know, that's just a budget buster when they leave the county for those facilities. So that's why I ask that we ramp up that.
Yeah, and then I think CCS in general is something we need to need to take a closer look at because our proportion of CPS cases. CSP,
CSP.
I'll get this right one of these. CSP versus CCS is a little different than some counties.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm really hopeful that the board. Approves Julia Tuesday night, because we've already had some conversations on what we need to do going ahead.
oh, good.
Change it up a little bit. I think you're gonna see, we're already having some reconfiguration with CPS that we're going through some changes there. So I think you'll see some changes in human services overall in the next year.
Okay, good. So we're all aware of it then.
Yeah, these retirements, when you lose 20 years, whatever it was, with Gary Gedhardt and Dan and Paul, you're seeing experience and comfort, and you know these people leaving, but it's also opportunity for us to take a fresh view of those departments and see how we can make things better.
Good. All right. Anything else for Rose? No, thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
Number 11, female jail population update.
So I think your intent isn't so much the jail population, but what we're doing and where we're at with the jail.
Well, this is kind of what I brought up, Andy, at
Last
finance
meeting.
too, that somebody tracks this and,
And there is a ministry, just like I said.
yep,
So I just looked at the jail report for last month. We were at 15 female inmates in Barron County. That might have gone up since then. There are 3 interviews today, I think,
I believe.
for female jailers. We have one coming back in a month and a half, so they'll fill in. Potentially, depending on how those interviews go, we could be filling in our female jailers. And then being able to, once they get trained in, be able to bring back the female inmates.
And I think you said, a majority of our inmates are in serving pre-trial, pre-sentence, right?
Yeah, right now, if you look at, like, we have 70 average inmates. 11 are probation holds. Just right about. Pre-sentence incarceration is 46.5 on average, so 2/3. And then post, actually serving out a sentence is 12.5. So about less than 20%. That's the averages so far this year. And like it said, you know, really trying to tamp down any expectations on seeing an overall savings in our county budget by having the new courtroom. Just because, you know, the number of people being arrested and going through the court system probably isn't going to change. And so you're either going to see them serving pre-sentence incarceration or longer post-sentence incarceration. So I don't see the jail numbers
Yeah.
changing. They should move through the system quicker. But just as much as the court, I mean, part of the reason you went into having a diversion program and
Right.
is to accomplish the same thing, have less people going through the court system, less people being incarcerated. And long term, hopefully reduce your recidivism rate, so that
Exactly.
keeps people out of the system.
That's what they keep talking about, that diversion reduces recidivism,
Right.
which maybe there won't be as many arrests down the road.
And I
We would hope.
think maybe the other thing we didn't really talk about at the last meeting, but you know, one of the things that the judge with Judge 1, you have these diversion programs, you have treatment courts, you have these other things. You need the judges involved with those, but when they have a full slate, it's maybe been hard for judge to be involved in those, but having 2 judges, they'll be able to be involved in more of those alternate sentences, not just for adults, but also I think we need to pay attention to what are we doing for youth and having any diversion programs for them. So again, the long-term goal is always to reduce the recidivism, so people, they are in trouble, that's a one-time thing, and we don't have them come back through with more serious charges in the future.
Yeah.
But again, I'll just say, from an expense standpoint, your overall expenses of running the county are probably not gonna go down by having the new addition and the second courtroom. I think we'll see just, you know, functional things like utilities, cleaning,
Yeah.
having additional space are gonna be more. And I think you're gonna see, whether we like it or not, requests for additional staffing coming through.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Mr. Duffy, I know you
No, I
were
think
concerned
it's-
about that in the past too.
I don't think that the new courtroom is gonna reduce the number of inmates. Looking forward, I don't know that. And when people ask that question, they have to be honest about it. It's-
Okay, thank you, Andy. County Clerk Department report, Madam Clerk.
I have, the biggest thing was the April election went off, we're finally reconciled. Board of Canvas has been completed and sent into the state. It was an interesting election and then we had 2 municipal ties that were defined by coin tosses.
Yeah.
And one of the clerks, or one of the winning candidates unfortunately has declined to accept the offer because there's been some tension in that municipality, so that one is still under debate on as to who's going to be on that board. We'll see.
They won the coin toss and then they're not.
They had, yeah, it was a difficult situation.
Oh,
But
Who makes that decision?
Well. They've been in touch with all of us, with Andy, with me, with WTA. So they've got a plan. I think they are having an emergency meeting to move the existing supervisor to the chair, so they at least have a chair, since that chair had also quit the month before. The existing chairs put the month before, so they're making plans. They'll move forward. It'll just take a month or so to get them in line.
Which township is this?
Drake had some issues. But they'll get there. And that's it. Uneventful other than that.
Well, you sure pulled it off.
It was a late
It's
one.
wonderful.
They always are. Someone always waits till it has to wake up after midnight to call in.
Oh, the clerks holding up with the training and stuff.
The municipal clerks themselves.
Yes.
Well, I have a feeling we're gonna lose another clerk in the village of Hooter. I think she's gonna decide not to move forward on, she was just a brand new one to begin with. And I think she's gonna decide not to continue with the position. So turnover still remains an issue. The election boxes that I created I think is making a difference in the election process itself. Poll workers are turning in materials that are much more accurate. We still always will have a few issues here or there because it's a stressful day, but overall reconciliation has gone from about 8 days down to about 4 each time now, so that's a great improvement.
Lynn, are there any regulations at polling sites where you have to have room for people to wait in line to vote? Inside or anything like that?
I don't think so.
I mean, Hayward does a real nice job, where I vote.
Yeah, they have
We
a
had,
nice
we
big
had a lot of
fire
people, but
department.
almost everyone could get inside. I mean, if the weather's bad or whatever.
Yeah,
But I had heard of another township where
West
only,
Lake.
yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Where there was only 1 or 2 allowed inside, everybody else had to stand
They have a
outside.
very small polling station, so there's only room for a few people to be in there. And yes, the election before, I think it was the general election in 2022, that they were standing outside in the rain. And it was miserable.
Where's that?
That's Lake.
Oh,
And they always have a huge turnout, so they have a lot of voters on there.
But they don't feel that that affects the voter turnout.
They'll wait,
Anyway.
they were standing there waiting.
Okay. I'm glad you knew about that.
Oh, yes.
All right, anything else for our county clerk's department report?
No, thank you for that, Glenn.
Yeah.
Good job.
Great work. Okay, number 13, county administrators report. Andy?
Kind of summarize a lot of it, so with the new hires, and some key positions. Working with them just to take a fresh look at what they're doing and get them trained in. Fair amount of time with human services in the CPS area. We've had to make some changes there. We have an interim supervisor. And we're trying to staff that area up. We have 3 vacancies. We've hired for one of those that'll start in another week and a half. But we need to get fully staffed there. Right now, we're piecing it together with the interim supervisor under contract, and then we brought on LTEs from surrounding counties and even further away to cover some of the case management and nights and weekends. But making slow progress with that. The transition to the new building. We were supposed to be in there this week with the court starting. It delayed another 2 weeks because with the wrap up of the building and the project manager and their crews and our AV contractor, the AV contractor couldn't get their work done in time, so they can't be back here for 2 weeks. So we've left the old courtroom up and running for the trial next week, and then they'll be here, AV will be here next week to get their work done, so we should be up and running fully on April 24th. The judge and the judicial assistant have relocated their offices over to their new office area. Beyond that, it's going through and finishing up some punch list items and kind of some of the smaller details. We have found, again, on the cost side, now that we're getting in and getting close to being up and running, it's, small things that need to be ordered. There were no podiums ordered for the courtroom, so we have to get one of those. Maintenance is building some additional fixtures for cabinet space for the clerk of courts in the courtroom. So things like that. There are things that were built correctly and according to the spec, but what the spec was and maybe what the court was expecting are a little different. So those are low priority things, but we may have to revisit those. And then there's just odds and ends kind of showing up that we're we're trying to address and trying to keep the costs in check. I have a meeting at some point here the next week with the project manager regarding the budget and the contingency fund, because the contingency fund is wiped out. So we're going into the remodeling of the old courtroom without any room for budget changes. Will there be some issues that come up? Can almost expect there will be, because you're going into remodeling. That's usually where things will turn up that the architects didn't realize or didn't anticipate when they designed the project. So like some of made comments too, at some point, we're gonna have to have a sit down with the project manager and the architects. Some of the things that came up so far in the project that use contingency were, it's like, who's responsible? Is it the project manager? Is it the architect? Is it us? So we're gonna have to resolve some of that, because there were some additional costs that probably could have been avoided if there had been different design done, or more, there's mistakes in the design that resulted in the project manager having to make changes on in the middle of construction. So we're gonna have to address those. The other thing is the timeline, because we're not getting into the new courtroom for another 2 weeks. That pushes back when they can start the remodel of the old courtroom, which pushes out the whole project a little further. And so the original timeline for completion will potentially have to be adjusted, and then we'll have to negotiate that, because it's not entirely the project manager's fault. It's partly our vendor's fault that we were responsible for. So it will be like a shared blame type of deal. But everybody, I mean, the contractor, the court, staff here have all been really good with the delays and being flexible on that. So I think everybody's just happy to start getting in there. Exterior wise, you won't see like the entrances on the east side here probably in use until right now they're saying midsummer. Once they get all the exterior landscaping done, the concrete work and the blacktop, it'll probably be well in the summer before that's all done. And we're not going to open up these entrances until that work is all completed.
So would be what, July 1?
That's the date, actually. It's midsummer. Yes, that's barely a couple weeks into summer by the calendar, but that's kind of what we're looking at.
Will our meeting be in here for both the board and a special meeting? Next week?
Yeah,
I
I
need to,
need to talk to Tim again. I believe Tim told me that they had already taken out like the desks that we use in
Okay.
the old courtroom aren't available
we'll be
anymore.
here.
So I think
Okay.
we'll be here for both of them. That's makes sense.
I would agree.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll try to,
We'll make it work.
we'll make it work.
We will. Yeah,
I
we
think
always have, right?
the issue with the new boardroom is that all the AV equipment that we're getting in is prioritized to get into the courtroom. So we're still short some pieces to finish off the boardroom to use that, the new boardroom.
With the new office years, we could use that. That's big enough.
What's that?
The new office years over there, that's big
Oh,
enough.
yeah, maybe the judges. And out there, we're just you'll see some ordinances coming through hopefully the next couple months. One thing that when we last fall, when we did the board rule updates, we got that all completed. The recommendation from council is that we start moving that from a board rules into an ordinance form. Chapter 2 of our ordinances should be your local rule on how the county is organized and run, and the current chapter 2 is really light on that. There's not much in the ordinance itself. So that's something we'll bring to the committee to consider, making that an ordinance. We have other public health is reviewing their ordinances, as is animal control, to get things more up to date. I think that's what I have for today.
Andy, did you talk about that vacation rental plan that's coming up between
I didn't.
HHS and zoning? I mean,
Yeah, so that's been an internal conversation here, kind of building for months. Yeah, obviously, if you've not seen the numbers, we went from, I think in 2018-19 having like 200 and some. When we started really getting into the licensing of those, there was 200-ish vacation rentals. These are like Airbnbs, VRBOs, people who rent out their houses or condos. Now we're over 550. Really exploded during COVID. And so it's brought up there's a nice presentation that our public health staff has put together that shows some of the issues, and actually, this isn't the board. But this, we're starting to hear more complaints from the public and neighborhoods. Town officials have complained because they're getting complaints from their town residents. Some of it is, people didn't expect when they bought their vacation home to have a house next door that has continuous turnover of occupants. Capacity seems to be one of the biggest issues, that, 4-bedroom house that's designed for 8 people is being advertised to accommodate 20. So there's, in the presentation that you'll end up seeing, it shows some of the basements with customized loft beds and bunk beds and how they're outfitting them. That has a impact on septic systems, capacity of those. So staff has been hearing these complaints, so we shared a presentation with Human Services Committee on Tuesday night. That's under the public health area, and that go to the zoning committee as well for them to take up. And we've asked both committees to consider what they want to do. I mean, the board doesn't want to do anything. That's straight to the board. This is going into a policy area. If you think there are issues that should be at least reviewed, then we're recommending the formation of an ad hoc committee that would involve the board members as well as stakeholders in the community, some of the actual operators and managers of these facilities. Take a look at what's happening and decide if there's any additional controls put in place to license these and operate them. But and that's just looking at like the health and safety type of issues. Separate from that, and that's really not part of the reason, but I've been involved in some conversations with other counties as to the economics of these and what their impact they're having on the community from a standpoint of people are buying up properties to generate revenue with them, which increases the value of them, increases the sale prices. But it's the housing stock available for people who want to live and work here. And the affordability of those properties. So that's kind of another conversation happening. But they also, the flip side, everybody's probably aware of the economic upside of these. If you think about it in terms of just capacity, 535 properties, over 550 now, are licensed as vacation rentals. If they even average 2 bedrooms, that's over 1,000 rooms. That's like 10 hotels. It's more than 10 hotels that have popped up in the county. So that's capacity. That's people that come here and they each spend average of $100 a day. You can do the math on how much money that's bringing in, and I'm sure we're seeing that is in our sales tax revenues. So there's 2 sides to it. It's balancing that out.
For sure. And this is all gonna be budget neutral, didn't they say they were gonna try to charge
That's part of
enough
it.
to pay for the staff it would take and time to do all this?
Yeah, we need to review our licensing. There's a license fee, but it is taking more than, each of those properties is supposed to be inspected once a year. Takes a lot of time to get around and visit 550 of these properties. So we have multiple staff doing it now. So we want to make sure we keep up our licensing costs, licensing fees to offset our workforce costs to manage these properties.
And who does the enforcement, Andy? Is this put on the police department again? What if they find violations and?
Generally, they respond to calls, like if there's, noise, if there are other ordinances that are being violated, like noise complaints, fireworks, those types of things, they can go and enforce. But things like the issue this winter with some of these properties was, you got a house that snowmobilers come up to and they have 6 trucks and 6 trailers. And they start blocking off roads or parking on the neighbor's property. It's end up being a lot of calls. The code enforcement officer, it's also our animal control, that was part of the design of that position, was to be able to have them go out on zoning and public health issues. So he was sent out to a couple of these. But that's, another point to consider is that there isn't really a enforcement mechanism. You kind of respond to when you get calls. You're not very proactive in enforcing existing regulations.
Any other questions for Andy?
I expect it will, I would say a hot button, it will be a topic that gets a lot of interest from the community, I expect. And there's two sides to the. To the.
Sure.
That marketplace.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's that property that the Village Radisson that we dropped the price on, and then there was 3 bids. It wasn't update on that.
I'd have to ask Janine, but the Land Water Committee. There was a kind of a issue that came up with the timing of when the bids were received. The Land Water Committee met last month and awarded the property to one of those bids.
Good.
And then Janine was to contact the property owner and complete the transaction, the transfer property.
I think he was working on that this week.
Okay,
And transferring that property just takes our liability risk away then.
yes, we're no longer the owner.
Okay, anything else, Randy? Thank you, sir. Future agenda items. Andy, let's put that. We don't need to call it. What is it? Female inmates. But we need something to track the second quarter, okay? As far as. Whatever this committee wants, but you were right, Ron, it's something that's coming here. But there will be a financial component.
That's what you're going to.
Okay, thanks, Ron. So that's a future agenda item, okay, Madam Clerk?
Got it.
Anything else we're not addressing or that should come here? Okay, if not, correspondence reports. Madam Clerk, you want to mention that in September, there's a Wisconsin counties.
Yes, I think it starts September 17th. If you are planning to go to, it's at the Kalahari again in the Dells. Please let me know right away, because rooms will open up May 1st. So that I would want to reserve. Rooms
I think
if you intend to
Mr.
go.
Buckles, you've gone in the past, right?
I was at the last one, yeah.
Yep. And Mr. Schleter,
I know
Does any other
you two so
interest?
far, do you plan to go?
Yeah, put me down.
Okay. I know last
But you-
time I had a big group that on initially planned to go, but then I ended up canceling most of them, so it's much easier to just. Wait and make sure that you can go before canceling.
Yep.
That helps.
Oh, it was very interesting last year. It was my first one, and I'm looking back. this year.
Okay.
Good information.
and then there's a business meeting for all the county chairs and usually resolutions that are drafted by each county
Yes.
can be presented and so Andy, you're working on,
Not yet, but. yeah.
I know, I don't, but I mean,
If there are
you
any
will
to-
be,
if there are
right?
any topics that you want to be considered on a statewide basis. Last year, we put forth the resolution on the mental health funding through the CSP program.
Yeah.
And that made it into the business meeting and was approved by the.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that becomes part of the platform for the county association, which I couldn't, because we have meetings this week, but yesterday was advocacy day for the county's association on mental health. So county staff were down in the Capitol talking about the funding of the CSP program amongst other things.
How about roads? Because the roads really took a hit this year. And they're in terrible shape, blacktop roads. And when you listen to the news, it's always Evers is repairing the roads, well.
Yeah.
When? This isn't Madison.
Yeah.
How much money he spent on roads?
Yeah.
Not up here.
Yeah, and they keep bragging up that Secretary Thompson, I think that's his name, that he's the guru of this. Can you draft something
Yeah,
like that, Andy?
yeah, I can draft something and maybe I can get the numbers to John now. But Gary did get, you're not gonna see this for a couple of years, but we did get 2 additional road projects funded. Before Gary left, it's gonna require us to provide 25% funding, which is good, and the 75-25 split for road rehabilitation is a good deal.
Right.
But maybe I can give you an update on what's on that we're going through that now as part of the capital improvement plan, working those projects in, but you can see what we have coming for road projects.
That and also the state roads. Which we don't have to fund.
Yeah. You know, that, Andy, that would be a good use of that surplus money the state supposedly has. That's one-time funding for as far as our portion of it, you know?
This is Tom Madison said we're spending money to fix roads, well. I don't see it.
but I don't either.
This one. All right, if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Now, could I meet with